Okay, can we all see my screen? Can I get a thumbs up if we can? Awesome. Okay, everyone, thank you so much for your patience. Good afternoon. My name is Cal Johnson, and I am an enrolled member of the Nez Perce tribe and have Yakima and Umatilla descendancy. I work at the Northwest Native Chamber as an Oregon Resource Navigator, and our CCIF team is excited to welcome you to today's webinar, Effective Grant Writing. This webinar is brought to you in partnership with Kelley Nonprofit Consulting. And now I'm going to turn it over to Isabella to go over interpretation.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Michael. So if you would like to listen to this presentation in a language other than English, you can select the interpretation channel that you would like to hear this presentation on by clicking on the globe here that says interpretation. It might be in the bottom right of your Zoom screen, and then from there you can select which audio channel you would like to listen to the presentation. So if you would like to hear it in Spanish, you can click on the globe and then select Spanish. Likewise, if you would like to hear this in English, it's recommended that you can also click on the English channel to hear the presentation. That's where we will all be, but you should be able to hear it from the original audio as well in English. Yeah, and if there's any questions about the interpretation throughout the presentation, please feel free to put them in the chat and we'll make sure that those get figured out. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, Isabella, for all of your work in creating this space of accessibility. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our presenter, Thomas White, to make introductions.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here. Excuse me. Thank you for being here today. My name is Thomas White with Kelley Nonprofit Consulting. We are a technical assistance provider that works primarily with nonprofit organizations, also with philanthropy, small governments, and small businesses across the Northwest as they seek grant funds in service of their important missions and the work that they're doing in their communities. So I'm excited to be here today talking about the Business Oregon Childcare Infrastructure Fund, how it can align with your priorities and how you can submit a strong application and be competitive for these funds. Just a quick agenda. I will start with some background to the Child Care Infrastructure Fund so that you can understand what we're talking about and how it aligns with your work. Then we'll talk about some effective strategies for grant writing. This will be some general strategies that work across contexts, not only for this particular grant. We'll talk about the process of seeking grant funding, how to use storytelling to tell about your organization, your work, and how to communicate impact effectively. After that, we'll talk about some tips and tricks for CCIF specifically. We'll go over the rubric and some of the priorities of this funding. And then we'll cover some next steps, other ways that the Northwest Native Chamber and other providers can help you put together an application. And we'll leave some time at the end for questions and answers. So CCIF started in 2023 when the Oregon legislature allocated
Năm
50 million.
2023 độ Oregon đã locate.
Hi, Chow. Let me put you into your channel really quick and then we can.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. Thanks.
Thank you, Isabel. I wasn't sure if I should be hearing that or ignoring it or
We just had an interpreter. Yeah, we just had an interpreter join a little late, but they're getting put into their channel. Thanks, Tom.
Now I got it. Thank you.
Isabel, just let me know when we're ready to keep going.
Okay, I think we're all good. Thank you, guys.
Great, appreciate it. In 2023, the Oregon legislature allocated $50 million for grants to expand access to childcare throughout Oregon. They completed the first round of funding back in the fall, in fall of 2024, and the second round opened up on March 26th of this year with an application closing date of April 30th. And that application will close at 4:59 p.m., so the very end of business hours on the 30th. There is also a third round coming up probably in September, though I believe the dates have not been exactly set. So if you're looking at the third round, you'll want to just keep checking in as they get closer. But the current round is open until April 30th. Projects eligible under this fund are restricted to fixed and immovable assets. This includes new construction, repairs and renovation, retrofit property acquisition. Repairs and renovation could be small, like minor renovations, or they could be very large renovations to take a space and completely overhaul it and make it usable. But the key is that these need to be property, assets, fixed, immovable things. Expenses such as staff time, curriculum materials grants, and other operating expenses are not eligible under this grant. Oh, I guess I should add also that planning activities that could be included as a small piece of it, but you cannot apply solely for planning. Your application needs to include some construction or renovation. So some effective strategies for grant writing. Make sure you read the full request for grant applications, the RFGA, closely. These materials are on the website for Business Oregon Childcare Infrastructure Fund. We've got a lot of materials in there, question and answers, so make sure you go and read everything very closely. After you do that, you can make a checklist of all the grant requirements with the rubric if available, and in this case it is. Include document subheadings, and that way you can just make a plan to ensure you have all the details you need. Get started on key tasks early. This can include compiling documents that need to be attached, creating your online grant portal account, creating budgets, anything that will need to be included, as you may need a lot of extra time for some of these. On this particular grant, there are a lot of documents that need to be attached. We'll go over these more later, but they do include having bids for and quotes for the work that you're going to have completed. And we know that working with contractors, getting bids can potentially take a lot of time. So make sure you get started on that as early as possible. You'll want to copy questions from the grant portal into a word processing document, whether that's through a cloud drive such as Google Documents or just through Microsoft Word, whatever works best for you and your organization. But the key is that you can work on putting your answers together offline, not when you're logged into the portal, because those online portals can have all kinds of issues, such as timing you out if you're logged in for too long without saving. They can be hard to navigate, and you'll just be able to put together a much stronger response if you're doing it offline. When it's time to submit, then you can go log in and copy paste your answers into the portal. Make sure you also note any word or character count limits. Copy those into your document as well, make note of them so that you can stay within the limits, and also so that you can use up all the allotted space you have. If a question is giving you 2,500 characters or 1,000 words, for example, to answer it, don't only give 200 words. You want to use as much of that space as possible, because that gives an indication to how much detail the grant viewers are going to be looking for. You'll also want to draft your grant question responses early, then come back after a few days to revise. We've all had that experience where we're working on something and you feel like you put as much into it as you can at one time, but after you've gone to take a walk or set aside for a couple days, you come back with fresh eyes and have a lot of new ideas for it, and you can find ways to improve it. conduct some research to understand the priorities of the funder. In this case, the particular fund was created to expand the number of childcare slots. So this is, distinct from improving curriculum or improving the space that already exists. Like, the very specific purpose was, after these funds are spent, they want there to be more slots available for childcare in Oregon than there were previously. So make sure you understand the priorities of the funder and you can align your grant request to it. Open your grant request with a clear statement of need and purpose and continue with direct language. Avoid extraneous language and make most of the space allotted. They are looking for information about what you're going to be doing with the funds and how it aligns with their priorities. And that's going to be more valuable, more important than kind of giving a lot of just a lot of extra language and kind of flowery descriptions of things. I've also got on this slide an example of what a checklist may look like. If the grant narrative is asking for you for background, project description, and timeline, have a spot on your checklist for each of those. Have a spot for your budget, for the different documents you may need to attach, such as support letters, contractor quotes, certifications. Putting all these in a document together will just help keep you organized and make sure you have all the information you need. So some effective strategies for grant writing, thinking about it as a story. A grant application is a sales pitch, and the best sales pitch tells a story. At its core, every story is about a character trying to overcome a problem, take some actions to overcome, to try to solve that problem, encounter obstacles, try to find solutions to those obstacles. They finally find the solution, learn something in the process. And effective storytelling pitches stress both the urgency of the problem and the attainability of the solution. This is something that most businesses, if they are putting together a marketing plan, they may think about their work through this lens of how can we tell the story about what we're doing and why we're doing it. And those same principles can then also come into your grant writing, which ultimately is a sales document. You're trying to sell your work, in this case, to Business Oregon's Child Care Infrastructure Fund. It'll look a little bit different. So we've got some examples on the next slide. So in this case, the protagonist of this story is the family or the community that you are serving through your childcare problem. And so think about some ways you can frame the problem that's being faced by that community and then the problem that you are solving with your services. Examples could be the closest childcare facilities are in another town an hour away. By the time you've driven there and back, you lose a quarter of the workday. There are no childcare facilities nearby that offer services in your household's first language. A successful childcare facility is at max capacity with a long wait list, i.e. there is an unmet need. They have the opportunity to purchase the building next door and expand, but the offer won't last long. So all three of these examples are more specific than the general need that's faced by anybody who's looking for childcare, right? Everybody who's in that position needs a place where their children are taken care of well and safe and are learning while they are still able to go to their job. That's the baseline. That's why the fund exists. And so you don't need to spend a lot of time on that aspect of it in your grant narrative. You want to highlight and focus on the things that are unique to your community and your situation that express some additional urgency. That urgency may be time-based. So this third example where you have an opportunity to expand into the building next door, but the opportunity is not going to last long. Urgency may come from you have some of the other, perhaps you need additional funds to build your facility and you've got a lot of the matching funds in place. And so this is the one last piece of the puzzle and we need to get it in now. Other things that may highlight the urgency is the uniqueness, right? So there's a language need that is not being met by the other facilities in town. So all these are ways to kind of elevate yours, highlight what makes it unique. In addition to using these storytelling techniques, there are other ways that you can communicate the valuable impact of your work. You can use statistics to show your community's needs. Example, looking up the number of childcare centers in your area versus similar communities. You look up economic statistics such as a median income. All this can be found through various public resources such as the Census Bureau website. The Child Care Infrastructure Fund specifically also has a child care desert tool on it where you can go and look up your community and see how it fits under several different metrics. You can share quotes and testimonials from families about what makes your center special. For example, you're the only one offering services in a certain language, and just getting quotes from families who have used your services can help and demonstrate the impact. And highlight what makes your childcare center or community unique, especially things not shown in standard data. Okay, so now those are all general approaches to grant writing. Let's talk about the CCIF opportunity in specific. So a quick overview of the rubric. This is the rubric that was used to evaluate the grants during the previous cycle. It begins with just a couple yes/no questions. And so these are points that you either get or you do not. The applicant provides a culturally specific service, and the applicant is a representative of one of the 9 federally recognized tribes in Oregon. Now, these are not qualifying factors. If your answer to one of these is no, it does not disqualify you from the grant. But if your answer is yes, then you do receive additional points on the rubric that will move your application up in the scoring. After that, there are several open variable questions, and the higher number you can give to each of these, the more points you will get. How many childcare slots will be created in a new program? How many childcare slots will be added to an existing program? And how many childcare slots will be preserved? That last one meaning if you did not get these funds, would you be losing slots? And those questions really get to the heart of the program and the purpose of it. So the more slots you can create, the more competitive your application will be. After that, we get to some evaluation questions that look at the strength of your program and the viability of your projects. And so each of these is rated on a scale of 0 to 4. You have the degree to which the project meets the needs of the applicant's community, such as priority populations, geographic regions, or family preferences. This is where you can talk about the unique needs that your community is facing, whether it is a childcare desert, whether it is a lack of linguistically appropriate childcare. It may be just as another example, a high need for childcare that accepts foster children. So whatever the unique need is in your community, and are you meeting it? There is a specific question for a project supports high need communities in a childcare desert using state childcare desert data. There's hours of operation based on population served. The highest scoring ones will have early and aftercare hours, even going into the evening. There's a yearly schedule. If you offer care during the summer months as well, you receive additional points. The program serves or plans to serve infants and toddlers, then that will receive additional points as well. Ability to work on projects shortly after you receive your award. They're looking for things that are shovel ready, that have plans in place and can start using the money and increasing slots as soon as possible. And then the applicant's experience in the field and number of years in operation. So an established program that's looking to expand will receive some additional points as compared to a new one that is planning to launch. Again, that's not a disqualifying factor. It's just something that will get some additional points on the scoring rubric. So you have a question here about, are the highest childcare deserts lacking in options because of low demand or low supply? Could go either way. That's one of those points where you need to describe the challenges in your particular community and what you're doing to meet them. I would imagine both of those probably exist, although I think demand for childcare is probably high in most places. But we know that those are always linked, right? If there has been low demand in the past, then there won't be as many suppliers. And then if demand changes, then it's hard for the supply to catch up. So those are things about your community that you will want to highlight. As we've said a few times, CCIF prioritizes projects that directly increase the number of childcare slots. This is probably the most important factor on the application. Additionally, they have a high prioritization for projects that serve disadvantaged communities. This can mean multiple things. It could mean culturally specific communities, it could mean rural, it can mean tribal, it can mean economically disadvantaged. It is a broad category, and you can make the case for that as you need to in your application. And then they prioritize projects that operate in childcare deserts. And this is one point where CCIF has their own, they essentially have a list. They have their own qualifications for what a childcare desert is. And so you either already fit into one of those or you don't. Within that prioritization, keep in mind that Business Oregon may, and I will say likely will, receive more high-scoring applications than they can fund. In which case, the reviewer's judgment and discretion will affect the award outcomes. This is a very highly competitive application. Particularly in the last round, they received many millions of dollars worth of applications from across the state. And so you will want to find ways to highlight your project's unique selling point in addition to hitting the points on the rubric, because there will probably be applications that numerically have roughly equivalent scores, and one of them is awarded and one does not, simply because there's going to be too many applications and they can't fund all of them. Yes, there is information on their website about what those childcare deserts are. And yeah, that'll be on the Business Oregon CCIF webpage. Some next steps as you're planning your application: review the round one awards and data to help prioritize your needs and create your request. And there is a page, I don't know if we can put the link in the chat for people there, or we have a link for the round one awards and data. There's a whole dashboard. You can kind of click around and sift through it yourself. The highlights that I want to point out: the largest award was $2 million, which I believe is the cap, but there was only one applicant that actually received an award at the highest level. A lot of people applied for it, only one received it, and the second largest was $981,000, so just under half of that. So those were for property acquisition and new construction major renovation. As a grant writer, I look at that and I say, unless you can really make sure you're hitting every point on the rubric, I would not recommend a client apply for the highest amount they can, just looking at what was funded in round one. That being said, apply for what you need. If you make a strong case for it and that's what you need to carry your project, certainly go for it. But it's helpful to look at what they funded the first time around. The smallest grant was $20,000 for minor renovation and repair, and the median grant size was $75,000. Median, for those of you who haven't taken high school statistics in a while, median is if you lay out all the grants from smallest to largest, that's just the one in the middle. It's not the mathematical average. It's just essentially what were more likely than not, they were given around that number. And the most common category granted was for minor renovation and repair. That was 72% of the grants. When you look at round one awards and data, you will see a few planning projects grants awarded, and that is no longer an option in round two. You can still fit a little bit of funds for planning into your overall budget if you'd like to, but they're no longer giving out planning project specific grants. Okay, so you also, if you're in this webinar, hopefully you are aware that Northwest Native Chamber offers very comprehensive technical assistance, and that support can include direct support with the CCIF application. It can also include a lot of capacity building around it to make sure your organization is strong, which in addition to making you a more competitive applicant, will also make sure you are ready to accept and use those funds well, help you create a budget and financial projections, business planning, market planning, projects implementation, legal assistance, grant writing, for this, accounting, CPA support, tax consulting preparation, bookkeeping, employment, HR consulting, and capital access strategy development. If one or more of those sounds like something that would be helpful, then reach out to Michael and she can tell you more about that than I can.
Yeah, thank you so much, Thomas, for that comprehensive overview. Yes, if you are looking for technical assistance, please get in contact with us. I would also like to say that this is no cost to business owners. So if you are looking for this support and you would like to be connected to these resources, schedule a meeting with us to go through a round of advising and eventually referral. Okay. And then I think we're going to now open it up for questions and answers. Feel free to raise your hand, drop your questions in the chat, or unmute yourself to ask directly. And it looks like we have a good chunk of time here to go ahead and just get in depth into grant writing questions. Also, if you want to get in contact with us, here is our contact information. We will send these slides and recordings out to all attendees and those who registered. It looks like we have one in the chat. It said, would it be better for an application to come from the building owner or the child care owner for build out on a new project?
Is this screen between the lines there? Is this a childcare business that's renting space currently rather than owning?
Well, currently we have like a grant from Pano to help support getting the build out, and it doesn't quite cover all of it. And also the building owner is able to contribute some to the build out as well. And we applied last round, and the scores, I'm meeting with someone on Monday to understand the scoring, but I'm wondering if it would be better if the building owner themselves are the ones applying for the funding that would complete the build out for us to be able to move into that site. It's definitely going to be us because we have this relationship with Apano and the building owner, but I'm just not sure like which direction to come from, I guess.
Yeah, I think the answer to that is most likely the owner of the childcare business would be applying.
Okay.
Partially just because I don't think that the builder could check any of the eligibility boxes. There's a list of what organizations are eligible to apply, and I don't, the exact specifics and nuance of the situation may change that, but I think that they would probably not be able to check an appropriate box.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just to add
We
on
have,
to that, oh, go ahead, Amy.
if you want to finish what you were saying, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I just wanted to say, yeah, just to echo what Thomas said, there is updated scoring for this new round listed on Business Oregon's website, like mentioned. And in that category, one of those is in regards to sustainability, community alignment. And so I think it makes a more appealing application coming from the childcare owner itself because they have that experience, lived experience, professional experience. So definitely, if you want to dive deeper into ways to make that application, more appealing, just let us know and we'd love to connect with you at the chamber.
Awesome. Thank you so much. The other question I was going to ask is we have another building that's in progress right now, and I know the building owner did apply for funding to help complete the building, and we're applying for funding to help purchase it. Are there, when there's two different applications for the same building, one's to finish, one is to purchase, or is there priority given to one or the other, or would it be given to us since we're trying to purchase the building?
And both those applications are to CCIF.
Yep.
It's a really good question.
Like, I don't want to, I don't want to be in competition. And I want us to feel like we're both on the same team. And so I'm just trying to figure out how to, yeah.
One option if the budget all plays out, it would be to combine them and do one application. You might not have enough space in the budget for that. I'm mostly guessing here, but just in my experience with funders, I think if those are submitted as two separate applications, a lot of grant reviewers would view them as would probably not fund both of them.
Yeah.
And not all, but that's just something that we've seen happen. That doesn't necessarily mean that they would turn down both of them also. Like, they might still decide to fund one, but they don't like to feel like it's kind of getting around the budget limitations just by splitting it up. And I know that's not what you're intending to do, but some funders may see it that way.
That makes sense. Thank you so much.
And I see a hand raised, and then we have some in the chat. So we'll go to Susan, and then we'll jump over to the Crystal and Kylie in the chat. Susan, if you want to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yeah, thank you. As I'm working my way through the application dashboard, I'm not seeing a location to attach my project plan, budget, documents, the contractor bids. Am I missing something? I do see the attachments for optional, but I just don't want that really important document to get lost down in the optional. Am I missing something?
They should be in there somewhere. Let me check my templates and see if it was in an odd place.
My first thought too is that it could be if you're applying for minor renovations, like they don't require you to attach the actual bids or plans. Or not necessarily the plans, but they don't require the bids to be attached. They just require that you self-attest. So if you're, depending on your category you're applying for, that might change where you kind of add them. But anything you do add to the optional attachment section will be considered part of your application and shouldn't be overlooked or anything by business owners.
Okay, thank you. We'll find a place to put them.
Did you have anything to add to that, Thomas? Or are you ready for the next question?
No, I was also just going to say, make sure you've selected the correct type of application at the beginning, whether it is minor renovation, major, or property acquisition, because which of those you select does change with the rest of the certain questions throughout the application. So if you select property acquisition, the space to upload your construction bids may have disappeared.
Thank you.
Okay. We have one from Crystal. The application for new construction and property acquisition require plans and drawings and construction bids. However, we plan to include planning activities as a part of our grant application, including architectural and engineering services. So it will be difficult for us to come up with plans/drawings and bids for the construction and property acquisition part of the project until after our planning activities have completed. What would you suggest we include in our grant application for construction and property acquisition if we don't have plannings and drawings and bids yet?
Yeah, thanks for that question. That's something that we've seen come up several times already as with various applicants. I think there's a couple things to keep in mind here. One of them is that I believe the exact phrasing of the requirement is that you need to include 2 bids or quotes, which is a little bit distinct from include the exact bids for all the exact work that you want done. And there are, kind of a few ways you can use that information and navigate it. I think one thing you could do is get some preliminary bids on, or even some kind of high level estimates if you have a contractor you trust who would, be willing to give you not something binding, but a preliminary estimate of this is what renovating a space like this could look like. And they could drop some examples. Maybe you get a bid for supporting you in that planning process. A bid for what it would take to draw up architectural plans. I think thinking about it a little bit more broadly and creatively that way could still fulfill the requirement. I do think that the strongest applications to this grant will be ones that already have some very exact plans that they want to do with it, but that doesn't mean I would not want to discourage anyone from applying just because they're not at that stage yet. So I would say find a contractor you can work with, someone can get you a preliminary quote or estimate and use that.
Thank you, Thomas. And then we have one from Kylie. When applications are being reviewed, do addresses/location get viewed as well to confirm childcare desert and or childcare needs in that area? Infant care needs, hours open versus others in the area. Are those these things that we should be mentioning in our application? So I
Let's
think
say,
that, oh, go ahead.
oh, I was going to say both. They will look at the zip code that you list at the top of the application whenever that question is asked, but then also do talk about that in your responses to the narrative questions. And because there's, we know that there's always there's more to it than is just shown in the official data.
Awesome. And Crystal, you put this in here if you want to provide a little bit more context, and then we'll jump over to Vanessa and Jennifer. It says, what if we are applying for multiple categories?
Yeah, in the application, you can select new construction or property acquisition or minor construction. But we want to apply for new construction and property acquisition, but we can only submit one application per address. So which one should we select, or is there a way to select multiple categories?
There is not a way to select multiple, so I would choose the one that is the best fit. In this case, it's just based on a little bit you said, it sounds like it's probably major renovation construction, and then if there's a cost for property acquisition, that might be a line item in your budget.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Vanessa, do you want to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yes, thank you. There's 2 questions that are in tandem. One is our early learning center that we are at. We're in this moment where the city is granting the building to us in a deed. We're waiting for the next city management meeting for the resolution to be met and that to go through. While revising my contract or reading through my application, it's asking me yes or no, do you own the building? On May 31st, we will own the building, but currently I do not. I can't decide whether I should answer yes or no on this. I do have letter format saying that it's going to be in our name by the 31st of May, but this application will be completed by April 31st. So or 30th. So I'm not sure what I should do with that one. And then I'll ask my next question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would answer based on the ownership status at the time you apply, but then also I would, in this situation, I would upload an attachment from the city certifying that this is, going to go through, and whether it's a letter you can get signed or something simple and straightforward that then can be viewed.
Okay, and then our project is a major roof repair that our insurance denied because of the age of the building. Should I include the insurance agent's proof that the roof is failing, but they were unable to cover it because it wasn't due to a disaster, it was because of the age of the building? Is that appropriate or need in that bit in my contract? Because I have multiple bids from contractors. I've got the electrical, the 2 doors that need replaced. But it's all included in that 2023 insurance claim that we asked for them to pay for that, and they denied it.
I think it could be useful to include that. You're
Okay.
showing that you've done due diligence and looked for other sources of funding before coming here, and that's always something that I think is helpful.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
No problem.
Okay, it looks like we have some in the chat. From Jennifer, I am in Lane County, which is a score of 1 according to the rubric for being in a childcare desert. However, I am in a rural community with severe lack of programs. It doesn't align with the standard number of programs in Lane County. How do we explain this, and how our area is a dire need? Testimony, the census data doesn't clearly express the need.
Yeah, I think you explain it just the way that you did now. There's space in the application, in the narrative questions, to describe the need in your community. And I think you can directly say, like, we are, for example, small, if you're unincorporated or whatever details you can add in, say, this does not reflect the stats of Lane County, which are affected by having larger towns nearby that our residents don't have access to.
Awesome. Thank you, Thomas. And then we have another question. When submitting parent testimonials, are you looking specifically for those that speak to how the program meets needs that are prioritized by grant goals, and/or testimonials that attest to the quality of our program?
So I guess I should clarify, there is not, you could always, if there's there's not a space in the application that specifically asks for testimonials. That is something that is always valuable to include within your narrative answers, as you need to. And it could meet either of those needs. When I am looking for testimonials, when I'm writing a grant application, I usually am using those to attest to the quality of the programming, to show that this is an organization that can take those funds and use them responsibly and use them to meet needs. But it's certainly often applicable as well to use those quotes to illustrate the reality of those needs.
And then we have a question in here from Carla. For real property acquisition, what should the estimated completion date be? And should the estimated completion date be before a certain date? So I would refer to the program guidelines for that, but Thomas, I don't know if you have any feedback on that one.
I don't remember offhand if what date the program guidelines give. If they do give a date, though, it's also going to shift depending on how quickly they actually get the funds out, and those would be in the eventual grant contract that is signed. So no, I'm sorry, I do not remember if there is an answer to that. I would look through that RFGA, and if there is one, it would be in there.
And it looks like we have some questions from earlier that we missed, so apologies. It looks like they were happening throughout the presentation. We have one from, let's see here, from Laura, and it is in regards to matching, I believe. Let's see here. One moment.
I think I see it. The school districts need a 100% match requirement. So typically for grant applications, matching funds could be money that's already in the bank ready to use. It could be grants that have been committed but have not been dispersed yet. Sometimes you need to check the grant requirements. I have not checked this question for this one. Sometimes in-kind donations from a partner can be considered match. And I don't know for sure if that is in this one. You would want to double check. But for school districts, that might be funds that have already been kind of appropriated by the community or by the school board, whatever your community's process is. Or it might be grants that have been committed by another source.
Thomas, this is Laura. So if I need additional follow-up with that question, who can I reach out to?
You're welcome. Michael, did you?
Yeah, go ahead, Isabella. Sorry.
I was just going to say, you can reach out to us at Northwest Native Chamber and we can get you connected with our team to set up a meeting and have a conversation more in depth about it. And I'll put our email in the chat.
Thank you, Isabella.
Thomas, I'm Laura's colleague. Could a classroom that is provided for childcare by the school district be considered a match for a classroom that we would be asking for the grant to provide in a major renovation? So an existing classroom be a match for a new classroom?
That is a good question. The school district, if the school district is the applicant, my guess, and this is just kind of my gut feeling, is no. But I don't know. I'm not going to rule it out. I would want to look into that a little bit more.
We'll definitely meet with Isabella and visit about it more. Thank you.
Yeah,
And
no problem. Thanks.
And we did have a question from Emily, and I apologize if I missed this one. I think it was in regards to we plan to apply as the building owner because we are managing the overall construction and plans and budget for the provider. Are we able to fill out the rubric on behalf of the provider?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Are you asking if you can?
Yeah, I think I'm responding to earlier you said that the building owner would be at a disadvantage in applying for the grant because they wouldn't be able to fill out the rubric to reflect the provider's reality. And I think that's what I'm wondering. We had gotten advice earlier that it would be better for us to apply because we've been managing all the bids and the construction process. So our intention was to fill out the rubric, you know, based on the provider's dynamics. So yeah, just curious how you would suggest navigating that.
Mm-hmm. Look carefully at the the eligible applicants, you know, and see if you do fit under one of those. There's a fairly long list of them.
Yep. Yeah. Yep.
Other than that, you're certainly allowed to collaborate. I mean, you can support an organization with their application. There's not, I don't believe, a space in this application for an official partnership. But if you are, you know, kind of coming in and working as a partner on this, and you're providing some of your capacity, I think that can be explained in the narrative that, like, maybe the childcare owner or business owner is the applicant, but you are supporting with your organization's capacity.
Okay. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone, for all of your questions.
I had one other question. Sorry. Going through the application, it says that unauthorized signer information is different than the owner. If we're a nonprofit, I'm the executive director, but it says that if it's not the business owner, we'll have to submit documentation. What do I need to make sure I have available for that piece as the executive director? There is no owner, so.
You're asking what documentation is needed?
Yeah, like just as the executive director, and there is no owner, and it says that it says the applicant will need documentation at the sign of the contract that verifies the authority of the business owner on behalf of the business owner. But there is no business owner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it sounds like that's something that's needed at the signing time the contract is signed, not attached to the application. I would imagine that's, you know, like a nonprofit bylaws or something would,
Okay.
just to show that you're the authorized signer of the organization. Yeah, that's probably a follow-up question for the business organ if you're to receive the grant.
Sure.
But
Okay.
it shouldn't stop you from applying, though.
Okay, well, it just says that I'm attesting that I'll make sure to do that. So I just want to make sure that I'm not attesting to something that I wasn't fully understanding. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone. It looks like we have a question in the chat, and then I think we'll have time for maybe one more question. Want to be conscious of everyone's time. So this one is from Crystal. In the chat, as a nonprofit organization, we don't have an official or legal owner of our business. However, our school director and director of administration are of culturally diverse backgrounds. So even though the organization's leadership are not official business owners of the school, can we indicate the grant application that the leadership of the school are culturally diverse? Also, membership in our organization is about 30% self-identified as non-white. Would it be helpful to add that to our grant application? We do also teach 3 different languages at our school, grades 1 through 12. However, we don't teach world languages in our early childhood programs. Would it be helpful to include this kind of information in our grant application?
I think it could be helpful to include. I think the key thing that they're looking for is that with the culture specific part of the rubric is that the community being served is culturally specific and that they are serving diverse communities. I think that's more what they're looking for than the specifics of the ownership or the leadership in this case. And the fact that it's, you know, nonprofit leaders rather than business owners shouldn't make a difference to that piece of it. I think what they're looking for with the leadership is that the leadership matches the community that's being served.
I had like a follow-up with that. So do you think that maybe like the information about the leadership in this case, or the program could be added to like the community alignment section a little bit more? Okay, cool.
Awesome. Thank you, Isabella. Thank you, Thomas. We have time, I think, for like one more question. If someone is wanting to ask. And again, we have our information in the chat. Please reach out. I know there's probably a lot of more questions that you all have as you get into your application. Okay, I think I'm not seeing any in the chat, and I'm not seeing anyone raise their hand or unmute. Yeah, I think I think we're good to go. Yeah, thank you.
I'm just gonna ask you,
Yeah.
Michael, if you could share, if there's no other questions from attendees, if you could share just a little bit more about our technical assistance process and what it means and what it kind of could look like for folks.
Yeah,
like
definitely.
upon reaching out to us.
Yeah, definitely. So essentially, you'll get in contact with the chamber if you are not already onboarded in our process. You will do an intake in regards to filling out your business information. This really helps ground us and guide us in providing technical assistance. And then you will be referred to schedule a time with the navigator. So I am one of the Oregon navigators. We also have a navigator, Jen Maynard, who works alongside me. And so we'll kind of tag team different meetings. In those meetings, they are usually virtual. and we will ask you questions in regards to your vision, your grant application, and some of those other identifiers. And then we provide assistance on feedback. We review application support. So if you're struggling with accessing your application or you need additional support or resources, like we mentioned earlier, professional service provider referrals. So, if you would like to meet with a grant writer, if you would like to develop a business plan or look into marketing or legal or taxes, we can definitely make those referrals. It's definitely, it's really like a partnership is how we view it. So, if you have those needs, reach out to us. And yeah, that's usually how it works. And we provide ongoing assistance, just as needed, right? So if you would like to schedule future meetings as well, we're open to that. But usually that's the onboarding process. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. It looks like we're at time. Thank you so much, Thomas. That was great. And I learned so much from you and really appreciate your time.
Thanks everyone for joining us. Good. It's nice to see you all.
Bye.